The ancient cottage sat on the forest's edge. It was gray and worn. Mr. Elias Thorne lived there. He was an old man. His life was quiet. 2 cats shared his home. Jasper was a ginger tom. He loved sunny spots. Shadow was a black cat. Her eyes shone like green jewels. For weeks, a visitor came. It came to their patio door. Each morning, they saw it. Wonder filled Elias. Curiosity sparked. It was a link between 2 worlds. One world was wild. The other was tame. A bobcat appeared. She was beautiful. Her fur was a mix of tan spots. It had soft stripes. She came when mists veiled the trees. She moved with quiet grace. Her tufted ears twitched. She would lift a spotted paw. Its pads pressed gently on the glass. There she sat. She watched the house cats. She watched for long, peaceful times. Elias observed this ritual. He watched for many weeks. One afternoon, autumn air was crisp. Elias made a choice. He slowly opened the patio door. Something amazing happened. The old cottage was a relic. It guarded the edge of a vast forest. Its timbers had seen many seasons. They creaked in the wind. They groaned like an old ship. This sound was Elias Thorne's constant companion. He was a man like his house. Seasoned. His face showed gentle smiles. Thoughtful lines marked it. 70 years had etched them. He had seen many sunrises. He had weathered many storms. His companions were his cats. Jasper, the ginger, had rich fur. It matched the autumn leaves. His greatest wish was to nap in every sunbeam. Shadow, the black cat, was sleek. She was nimble and mysterious. Her green eyes watched everything. She seemed regal. She was often suspicious, but her suspicion melted into loving purrs. For weeks, the silent guest came. It was almost a ghost from a forest. A bobcat. It was stunningly wild and beautiful. Her fur was nature's art. Tawny spots, subtle stripes. They shifted with her every move. She appeared with the morning mist. The mist clung to tall pines. It clung to old oaks. She moved like water. Her grace spoke of silent hunts. It spoke of secret forest paths. The first time Elias saw her, his heart jumped. A wildcat, so close to his home, so close to his beloved pets. He sat frozen in his old armchair. He watched her approach the glass. Her tufted ears had black tips. They twitched. She was assessing. Then, with gentle care, she lifted a paw. Its soft pads touched the cool glass. Jasper often did the same. He tapped from inside. Jasper was usually playful. He chased dust motes. He chased unseen enemies. Now, he was captivated. He pressed his nose to the glass. His whiskers quivered. A low, curious rumble started in his chest. Shadow was more cautious. She watched from a distance. Her tail twitched slowly. Her green eyes were wide. They did not blink. The bobcat would sit there, sometimes for an hour, maybe more. She just watched. Her golden eyes had amber flecks. They held a deep stillness. Elias found himself drawn to it. He felt a growing connection. She was not aggressive. Not at all. Her ears were not flat. She made no low growls. She showed no teeth. Instead, Elias saw quiet curiosity. He saw a wistful look in her eyes. She watched the cozy scene inside. Jasper batted at Shadow's tail. Shadow groomed Jasper with rough, loving licks. Both cats rubbed against Elias's ankles. They purred their happiness. Sometimes the bobcat groomed herself. Her wild fur shone. Her pink tongue moved quickly. The act felt strangely intimate. The glass barrier seemed thin. Or she would lick a paw. She would pause. She would gaze at the house cats. It was as if she compared notes. Notes on cat manners. Often, just before sunrise, she curled up. She became a furry ball. She lay on the braided doormat. A silent, wild guard at their door. Then she would vanish. She slipped back into the whispering woods. As silently as she had come. Elias was a kind man. His heart was warm. It was as big as his fireplace. His first worry faded. It dissolved like sugar in tea. He was a retired botanist. He had spent his life watching nature. He saw its quiet miracles. This felt like another miracle. It was happening right before him. He began to speak to her. His voice was low. It was a soothing sound through the glass. "Well now, you are a pretty thing," he might say. Or, "Jasper and Shadow are happy to see you." He didn't know if she understood, but she often blinked slowly. Her ears would turn toward his voice. He saw this as a sign of listening, perhaps even trust. The days grew shorter. Summer's green turned to autumn's fire. The air became crisp. It smelled of woods. It smelled of fallen leaves. The bobcats' visits continued. They were a steady ritual. Elias noticed she was a bit thinner. Her wildness seemed more obvious. The season of plenty was ending. He started leaving a small dish. It held fresh water. He left it near the patio. He never saw her drink. He knew not to offer food. He did not want to tame her. He did not want to take her wild spirit. That spirit made her so grand. Yet his heart ached. He felt a strange sympathy. His own cats were not scared. They were not territorial. They seemed to accept her. Her presence was part of their day. Jasper often sat by the door. He sat for a long time. His tail twitched. Elias thought it was a friendly greeting. Sometimes Jasper made soft, chirping meows. Shadow joined him too. Her early caution was gone. Now, she watched with calm interest. It was as if they understood. They felt the silent talk. The talk between them and their wild cousin. One afternoon was very windy. The wind howled. It sang a sad song through the house. Leaves swirled outside. They danced in red, gold, and brown. Elias sat in his armchair. A hot mug of tea warmed his hands. He watched the bobcat. She huddled by the patio door. She sought shelter from the biting wind. Her fur was ruffled. She looked smaller, more vulnerable. Jasper was inside. He mirrored her position. His paw rested gently on the glass. A wave of protectiveness washed over Elias. He looked at his cats. They were snug. They were safe in their warm home. Then he looked at the wild creature. She braved the storm. Only a pane of glass separated them. "Well, my dears," he murmured. He stroked Jasper's soft head. The ginger cat leaned into his touch. He sighed with contentment. "It seems you have a persistent admirer." He added, "And a rather cold one today." Perhaps, he thought. His gaze went back to the bobcat. Perhaps it's time for a proper introduction. The idea was both exciting and scary. This was not a stray kitten. This was a bobcat, a predator. But everything he had seen told him otherwise. Every gentle move, every soft look. This bobcat meant no harm. His heart guided him. It rarely led him wrong. He took a deep breath. He said a silent prayer. He hoped for understanding. A flutter of fear was in his chest. It was like a trapped bird. He rose from his chair. He moved slowly. He moved with care. He did not want to scare the wild visitor. Jasper and Shadow sensed a change. They watched him. Their eyes were wide with curiosity. He reached for the patio door handle. "Easy now, girl," he whispered. His voice was soft. The wind almost hit it. With great care, he slid the door open, just a few inches at first. A gust of cold air rushed in. It filled the warm room. It carried the scent of pine. It smelled of damp earth. The bobcat had been resting. Her head was on her paws. She lifted it sharply. Her golden eyes locked on the opening. Then they focused on Elias. For a heart-stopping second, she tensed. Every muscle in her body was tight. She was ready to run, or ready to fight. Elias held his breath. He kept his movements slow. He tried to look harmless. Jasper, always brave, padded forward. His tail was a question mark. Shadow followed a step behind. Her sleek body was low to the ground. They stopped at the doorway. They peered out of the bobcat. She was only a few feet away. No glass separated them now. The bobcat stayed frozen. Her gaze moved between Elias and his cats. Then, Elias felt huge relief. Her body softened. It was a tiny change. The tension seemed to flow out of her. That familiar, deep curiosity returned. She took a hesitant step forward. Then another. What happened next was a delicate dance. A silent meeting of different species. Jasper chirped softly. He was the first to go outside. He stepped carefully onto the cold patio stones. He approached the bobcat slowly. His body language was open. It was curious. The bobcat lowered her head slightly. This was a sign of peace in the cat world. They touched noses. A brief, shy sniff. Shadow, feeling braver, followed Jasper. Her approach was just as careful. She too shared a gentle nose touch. She touched the wildcat. Elias watched. His heart swelled. There were no hisses, no growls, no bare teeth. Just quiet, mutual discovery. Soon, an unspoken bond formed. It bloomed between the three cats. Elias now called the bobcat Sky. He chose it for her silent arrivals. He chose it for her quiet departures. Sky began to join the house cats. They sunbathed together on the patio. The autumn sun was often kind. It showed its face. She kept a respectful distance at first. But slowly, the space between them shrank. They explored the small, fenced garden together. Sky moved with wild grace. Jasper's playful jumps looked charmingly clumsy beside her. Elias never tried to touch Sky. He understood. Their bond depended on her terms. Her wildness had to be respected. He would speak to her gently. She often turned her tufted ears towards him. Her golden eyes would blink slowly. It was enough. Then the first snows of winter arrived. Soft, silent flakes fell. They turned the world white. The forest became stark. It was beautiful, but it was undeniably harsh. Elias's worry for Sky grew. It grew with each cold day. The temperatures dropped. He saw her tracks in the snow. They were near the patio. Sometimes he saw a faint hollow. It was where she had rested. But her visits became less frequent. Her appearances were shorter. One very cold evening, the wind howled. It sounded like a hungry wolf. Snow piled against the windows. Elias found Sky on the doormat. She was huddled there. She was shivering. Her fur was dusted with snowflakes. His heart ached at the sight. He knew wild animals were tough. They were built for such weather. But the bond they had formed was strong. The trust she had shown moved him. He had to act. Leaving the door slightly open that night was an act of faith. He laid out an old, soft blanket. He put it near the fireplace. He hoped. He hoped so much. Jasper and Shadow seemed to understand. They often went to the slightly open door. They peered into the snowy darkness. It was as if they invited their wild friend inside. Elias was tired from worry. It was late. He eventually fell asleep in his armchair. He woke in the dim light before dawn. Embers crackled softly in the fireplace. And there, curled on the old blanket, was Sky. She was not alone. Jasper was snuggled close on one side. His ginger fur was a warm splash against her spotted coat. Shadow was nestled on the other side. Her black fur was sleek and dark. All three were fast asleep. It was a picture of deep peace. Such harmony between species. Tears came to Elias's eyes. Her wildness, for a time, was soothed. Not by force, not by trickery, but by simple warmth, by acceptance, by friendship. Throughout that hard winter, Sky was a regular guest. She came overnight. She would arrive at dusk, a silent shadow from the snow-covered trees. She slipped through the slightly open patio door. She greeted Jasper and Shadow with soft headbutts. She rumbled purrs. Elias was surprised by their depth. Then she settled by the fire. She never went further into the house. She never showed interest in his food, only a polite sniff. She always kept her wild core. But in those shared moments of warmth, he saw a miracle. His tame cats and their wild cousin, curled together. Elias witnessed quiet magic. It was proof of friendship's gentle language, a language that crossed all lines. It was a comforting rhythm, a rhythm in the heart of a long, cold winter. Then, spring began to whisper. The land started to thaw. Birds returned, chirping loudly. Brave green shoots pushed through tired snow. Sky's visits became irregular. Then they stopped, completely. For several long, anxious weeks, she did not come. The patio door was often left ajar. Elias hoped. He left it open on milder days. But she did not visit. The doormat stayed empty. A heavy silence fell on the small cottage. It was a silence much deeper than usual. Jasper was normally full of play. Now, he sat by the glass for hours. His gaze was fixed on the trees. He let out soft, questioning meows. They tore at Elias's heart. Jasper's bright spirit seemed dim. His sunbeam naps were restless. Shadow, always watchful, paced the patio. Her green eyes scanned the forest edge. She looked worried. Her sleek body was tense. She often refused her favorite treats. Her attention was only on the empty space, the space where Sky used to appear. Elias, too, felt a deep loss. A growing, nagging fear took hold. The forest was beautiful. It was familiar, but now it seemed more threatening. It was a place of stunning beauty, but also a place of harsh dangers. Predators, scarce food in late winter, sickness, accidents. Had a coyote pack found her? Was she injured, unable to make the journey? Or had she simply decided her time with them was over? Had the wild called her back for good? Each day without Sky felt heavier. It was a painful silence. There once was quiet waiting. There once was the soft sound of wild paws. The joy her presence brought now cast a long shadow, a shadow of her absence. Elias found himself going to the window often, many times a day. His gaze swept the familiar paths, the paths she used to take. He'd call her name softly. He called into the wind. Sky, Sky Girl. Only rustling new leaves answered, or the distant caw of a crow. He even thought about searching. In moments of sharp worry, he considered it. He thought of going into the forest himself. He knew the trails near his home, but the deeper woods were vast. It was easy to get lost, especially for an old man. Good sense kept him home. A nagging fear also held him back. Fear of what he might find, or not find. He knew it was unlikely. Finding a lone bobcat in such a big wilderness. The chances were tiny. All he could do was wait, and hope, and try to comfort his two sad cats. They clearly missed their wild friend. They missed her as much as he did. The absence stretched. Days turned into a week, then 2, then 3. Early spring burst with life. Daffodils bloomed. Crocuses pushed through the soil, but it felt muted. Its beauty was dulled by their worry. Elias tried to keep his routines. For himself, for Jasper and Shadow, but a constant ache stayed in his chest. He'd catch himself listening for the telltale scratch at the door, or the soft thud of her landing on the patio. But he only heard the old house. It settled around him. The bright tapestry of their unusual friendship felt torn just as despair began to creep in. Cold and sharp, it threatened to put out the last embers of hope. One morning, the sun finally broke through. Spring rain had persisted. Now, sun painted the dew-covered forest, gold and emerald strokes. A familiar figure emerged from the trees. Elias was at the kitchen sink. He was washing breakfast dishes. His gaze drifted to the forest edge. It was his habit now. At first, he thought his mind was tricking him. His longing created ghosts. He blinked. He blinked again. No, it was her. Unmistakably, it was Sky. Her fur was perhaps a little thinner from whatever kept her away, but it still held that beautiful pattern. Spots and stripes. She moved with her usual grace, though perhaps a bit slower, a bit more careful than he remembered. A gasp escaped his lips. A teacup slipped from his soapy fingers. It clattered. It landed safely in the plastic basin. Jasper. Shadow, he cried out. His voice was thick with emotion. She's back. Sky is back. The two cats had been grooming nearby. They seemed lifeless. Now they shot up, as if jolted by a shock. They raced to the patio door. Their tails were held high. Their earlier dullness vanished. Electric excitement replaced it. Jasper pressed his nose to the glass. He let out a stream of excited chirps and meows. Shadow stood beside him. Her body quivered. Her green eyes were wide and bright. But as Sky drew closer, Elias saw something. She was not alone. Trotting shyly behind her were two small figures. Their tiny paws made faint marks, almost invisible prints in the damp earth, and in melting patches of old snow. Two small, spotted bobcat cubs. They were tiny versions of their mother. All big blue eyes. Young kittens often have them. Tufted ears. Impossibly fluffy, spotted fur. They stuck close to Sky's heels. They occasionally stumbled over their own big paws. They looked at the world with caution, wild caution, and kittenish curiosity. Everyone was shocked. Elias felt tears well in his eyes. A wave of emotion washed over him. Relief, joy, astonishment. He fumbled with the patio door latch. His hands trembled. He pushed it wide open. Sky paused at the edge of the patio. She looked at him. Then she looked at Jasper and Shadow. They were practically vibrating. They were full of joyous excitement. She gave a soft, reassuring chuff, a sound deep in her chest. Then, with a gentle nudge of her head, she encouraged her cubs forward. Hesitantly, the little ones took a few steps. They were no bigger than Jasper's head. They stepped onto the unfamiliar stone, the stone of the patio. One cub was slightly bolder. It let out a tiny, almost silent meow. Jasper, always the gentle soul, couldn't wait. He padded out slowly. His usual lively energy was softened. He showed amazing gentleness. He approached the bolder cub. He sniffed delicately. The cub startled for a moment. It flattened its tiny ears, but Jasper simply lay down. He let out a low, rumbling purr. Then, Elias watched in utter amazement. Jasper began to lick the cub's head. He licked the top of its spotted head. He did it tenderly. The little bobcat seemed reassured. This was a universal sign, a sign of cat affection. It relaxed. It even leaned into the grooming. Shadow had always been somewhat aloof. Regal. She surprised them all. She approached the Shire cub. It had hidden behind Sky's legs. With surprising maternal grace, Shadow lowered her head. She nuzzled the little one softly. Her sleek black fur was a beautiful contrast. It stood out against the cub's wild spots. She let out a soft, welcoming chirp. The cub hesitated for a moment. Then it tentatively touched its nose to hers. Sky watched this scene. Her golden eyes were soft. They showed a mother's love. And something else. Elias saw it as a friend's deep trust. She looked at him, a long, steady gaze. Then she blinked slowly. He had come to understand this. It was her quiet way of talking, of acknowledging. It was as if she were saying, "These are my children. I trust you with them, as I trust this place." The heartwarming sight filled the small yard. It filled Elias's equally small kitchen. An unspoken, bright joy spread. The painful anxiety of the past weeks melted. It was replaced by deep wonder and gratitude. The silent, empty spaces Sky's absence created were now filled with the tiny, curious movements of her young, and the gentle, welcoming acts of his own beloved cats. Elias slowly sank into his armchair. His gaze never left the scene on his patio. The sun was higher now. It bathed them all in its warm spring light. Sky lay down. Her cubs tumbled playfully around her. They occasionally batted at Jasper's twitching tail, or tried to pounce on Shadow's patient, swishing one. The house cats were not annoyed. Far from it. They seemed to enjoy the attention. Their earlier sadness was gone, replaced by gentle, nurturing play. The beautiful circle of friendship had been broken, so painfully. Now it was complete once more. It was expanded. It was enriched, in a way none of them could have imagined. The old cottage on the forest's edge was no longer just home, not just for Mr. Elias Thorne and his two cats. It had become a haven, a meeting place, a testament to enduring connections, surprising connections, deeply touching connections, connections forged between humans and animals, and even between the wild and the tame. The future promised many more days, days of shared sunbeams, days of gentle purrs, and the quiet, breathtaking magic of Sky and her growing family. Elias knew. He knew with a certainty. It warmed him to his soul. This was the most beautiful shock, the most wonderful surprise life could have ever offered him.